When I write of hunger, I am really writing about love and the hunger for it, and warmth and the love of it, and it is all one. The words of MFK Fisher. Hello once again, I'm Don Jackson. Walter de la Mare, in an epitaph from his collection entitled The Listeners, wrote, "Here lies a most beautiful lady, light of step and heart was she. I think she was the most beautiful lady that ever was in the West Country. But beauty vanishes, beauty passes, however rare, rare it be. And when I crumble, who will remember this lady of the West Country?" My wife and daughter have become fans of some of the more competitive cooking shows on TV. Some of the challenges prove that you can make just about anything with whatever ingredients you happen to have in the fridge. One of these shows has a basket of ingredients in front of each contestant, and they must make a meal from whatever they find inside. I am convinced that no matter the circumstances, some of these chefs would never go hungry. The same can be said for fishermen and others whose weekends are spent outdoors in the wilderness. CNN's Anthony Bourdain has traveled the world and has sampled some of the most unusual cooking. I know for a fact he would never go hungry. My wife surprised me the other day. I think I know her pretty well after 24 years of marriage, but she still can catch me off guard. She is a chameleon, for lack of a better term. The reason I say that is my wife has had many different careers and occupations over the years I've known her. She has an animal sciences degree. She has worked in a college lab doing drug research. She once owned an aesthetic salon. She sold luggage in a shopping mall and was a teacher's assistant at a private school. Now, she works in the lab at a repair center fixing printers, monitors, and computer mainboards. In her spare time, she creates beautiful concrete bird baths and stepping stones and is training to walk with hundreds of others to raise funds for the research and treatment of women's cancers. When she sets her mind to something, I have no doubt she will bring her best to whatever the task is. Just recently, she told me that if she had to do it all over again, she would go to cooking school to become a chef. Now, I can testify to her many culinary creations. I can also understand why she might choose a career as a chef. But this kind of hunger is not the basis for this webcast. As M.K. Fisher said, "When I write of hunger, I am really writing about love and the hunger for it, and warmth and the love of it, and it is all one." This is an excerpt from that wonderful book by Merle Shane called Hearts That We Broke Long Ago. She wrote, "When you ask what love is," said Krishnamurti, "you may be too frightened to see the answer. You may have to shatter the house you have built. You may never go back to the temple. Fear is not love," he said, "nor is love dependence, jealousy, possessiveness, domination, responsibility, duty, self-pity, or any of the other things that conventionally pass for love. If you can eliminate all these, not by forcing them, but by washing them away as the rain washes the dust of many days from a leaf, then perhaps you will come upon this strange flower which man always hungers after." A cup of tea goes a long way to easing some of that hunger. This is called At Tea by Thomas Hardy. The kettle decants in a cozy drone. and the young wife looks in her husband's face, and then at her guests, and shows in her own her sense that she fills an envied place. The visiting lady is all abloom and says there was never so sweet a room. And the happy young housewife does not know that the woman beside her was first his choice till the fates ordained it could not be so. Betraying nothing in look or voice, the guest sits smiling and sips her tea, and he throws her a stray glance, yearningly. Half of the width of the room was still between them, and neither made any show of moving. Archer was conscious of a curious indifference of her bodily presence. He would hardly have been aware of it if one of the hands she had flung out on the table had not drawn his gaze, as on the occasion when, in the little 23rd Street house, he had kept his eye on it in order not to look at her face. He had known that love is fed on caresses and feeds them, but this passion that was closer than his bones was not to be superficially satisfied. His one terror was to do anything which might efface the sound and impression of her words. His one thought that he should never again feel quite alone. An excerpt from The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. Instead of loving a human being for his hunger, we love him as food for ourselves. We love like cannibals. To love purely is to love the hunger in a human being, but the way we actually do love is very different. Thanks to their companionship, their words, or their letters, we get comfort, energy, and stimulation from the people we love. They affect us in the same way as a good meal after a hard day's work. So, we love them like food. An excerpt from First and Last Notebooks by Simone Weil. And Gustave Flaubert, in The Sentimental Education, wrote, "Sometimes she smiled, allowing her eyes to rest on him for a moment. Then he felt her gaze penetrating as a bright ray of sun reaches to the bottom of the water. He loved her without reservation, without hope of his affection being returned, absolutely. And in these moments of silent ecstasy, which resembled transports of gratitude, he would have liked to cover her forehead with kisses. At the same time, he was enraptured by a secret desire. It was a longing to sacrifice himself, a wish to consecrate himself to her immediately, all the stronger for being impossible to fulfill." End quote. It was Henry Drummond who said, "You will find as you look back upon your life that the moments that stand out, the moments when you have really lived, are the moments when you have done things in the spirit of love." There's a Russian proverb that states, "Love and hunger are the foundation stones of all things." Carol Klein quoted in From Love That Hurts to Love That's Real by Sylvia Ogden Peterson said, "The infant's satisfied breathing as he peacefully falls asleep speaks of emotional as well as physical hunger appeased." Poets have always known that the darker side of love is the wrenching anxiety of wondering whether the we one desires so desperately will split apart, making two separate, lonely selves. End quote. Sylvia Ogden Peterson herself in her book writes, and again I quote, "Unconditional love. There are no strings attached. No, if you do this, I'll love you messages. Unconditional love is the love we all hunger for as children and in adult relationships. It's certainly the kind of love we try to give as parents and partners. Unfortunately, conditional love is what most of us wind up experiencing, both as givers and receivers of love. And conditional love simply does not meet our innermost needs, for it does not involve the nurturance of spiritual growth. I'm sure you're familiar with Aesop's fables. They usually had a moral at the end. This one is called The Ant and the Grasshopper, and this translation begins. In a field one summer's day, a grasshopper was hopping about and singing to its heart's content. An ant passed by, bearing along with great toil an ear of corn he was taking to his nest. "Why not come and chat with me?" said the grasshopper, "instead of toiling and moiling in that way." "I'm helping to lay up food for the winter," said the ant, "and recommend you to do the same." "Why bother about winter?" said the grasshopper. "We've got plenty of food at present." But the ant went on its way and continued its toil. When the winter came, the grasshopper had no food and found itself dying of hunger, while it saw the ants distributing every day corn and grain from the stores they had collected in the summer. Then the grasshopper knew it is best to prepare for the days of necessity. End quote. A final thought from Edward S. Ames, who said, "Hope is outreaching desire with expectancy of good. It is a characteristic of all living beings. Birds, beasts, and men are always alert and striving for the fulfillment of their hungers. They are impelled forward in a ceaseless quest for satisfaction. The antennae of insects restlessly explore and feel their way ahead, and the imagination of man functions in the same manner, ranging through wide areas and far futures in search of good which hope ever promises." Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.